Hey guys, and welcome to Leaguecraft 101. This is going to be a 2-video set on how to play jungle. So the first video will talk about the techniques that junglers need to learn, and the second video will talk about how to carry a game as jungle using these techniques. So I'll be teaching about two junglers in particular, PhRoXzOn and Hecarim. These guys are insanely powerful because they can power farm the jungle, they have massive uptime on the map, and they have great ganks. So the reason I'm teaching a carry style of jungling is because it's really easy to revert back to a support style, but it's really hard to transition to a carry style if you've only learnt the support style. So the first thing when you play jungle is your jungle clear. I advocate doing a full clear in the majority of your games. In the full clear, the only camp where you want to kill the big monster first is the buff camps. At every other camp, you want to kill the small creatures first so that you take less damage and you clear faster. So as an added bonus, if you started at Gromp, if you kill the little Krug first, you're going to get level 4 halfway through the camp, which allows you to kill the big Krug first and take less damage. You also want to use your smite immediately as soon as you start the camp, and then you smite either your red buff or the wolves when your smite comes back up. You also want to make sure that you're fully utilizing your auto attack resets on your Q so that you can kill the camps as quickly as possible. On both PhRoXzOn and Hecarim, you're going to be healthy enough to gank at level 4 if you did your clear correctly. On PhRoXzOn, you can start at either Krugs or Gromp, but Hecarim you want to start at Gromp so you can get your blue buff and you don't run out of mana when you're clearing. The only time I consider not full clearing is if I'm counter ganking, or if I know for sure that I'll convert a kill. Say for example, someone burnt a flash in an invade at level 1, and I still have flash, or someone's so horribly overextended that you're going to kill them even if they flash. But in general, it's not worth to give up levels just to burn someone's flash. It's much better to just take the camp and get to level 4. So as we all know, jungling's all about decision making. And the way I approach jungling generally is to have this big flowchart of options. And these are ranked in rough order of priority from top to bottom and left to right. Most of these are pretty straightforward. Diamond and Challenger junglers are generally at that level because they know each of the things to do efficiently to put themselves ahead of the enemy jungler. Once you're ahead of the enemy jungler, you can pretty much go wherever you want because they're unable to fight you. And the main reason why Gold and Platinum junglers aren't quite there yet is because they might not identify an opportunity to take Dragon when it comes up, or they might farm the jungle instead of doing a minion crash dive, or they might spend slightly too long trying to force a low percentage gank instead of power farming their jungle, and so on. So taking objectives is extremely important, and generally if you have an opportunity, it's better to take Dragon or Rift Herald over turrets and solo queue. This is because you can deny it from the enemy, and you can always take the turrets later. They're not going away. But in Ranked 5, since you're more coordinated, it's generally better to take the turrets, because you can put the global gold and map space to better use. And another thing that players commonly run into is they try to randomly force objectives. This in general is a trap, and a lot of the time you're gonna get your teammates killed or yourself killed. Instead, it's much better to force someone to back or to kill them and then take the objectives afterwards. Don't try to just force Dragon 5v5 and then have a team fight and lose. So in this clip, I'm trying to power level while I'm on my way to invading and warding the enemy jungle. And in doing so, I run into Xin Zhao and we manage to get a free kill off it. Our Diana comes out of the mid bush and just straight up kills him. So at this point, we look at the map, and since the jungle is dead, you should straight away look and see what objective you can take. So getting into this habit is extremely important if you want to be a good jungler. Twisted Fate here has to back, and bot lane's winning, so we can go take a free dragon. So notice that if our bot lane was losing, going for a dragon here is really difficult because we can get collapsed on very easily, and it's very difficult to take the dragon safely. And what I'll often find is, when playing in Plat or Gold, there'll be times where first dragon isn't taken until something like 15 or 20 minutes. And this is a leak in play that you can easily plug to just greatly improve and snowball your early game leads into crushing mid game leads. So next time one of your enemy lanes or jungle has to back, or they die, just try and take the dragon and spam ping your laners to help you. And sure, you're going to fail the first few times and maybe you'll get killed or lose the dragon. But if you adopt this thought process as your default behavior, then eventually you're going to learn the good times to go for it and it'll come a lot more naturally to you as you get better. So in this next section, I'm going to be talking primarily about how to gank properly. And there are 3 general mistakes that a jungler makes when they're trying to gank. The first one is they try to execute a gank before triggering enemy bloodlust. So to gank correctly, you want to wait until the enemy has triggered their bloodlust and they start trading, and then you swoop in and turn the tables. This almost always guarantees that a flash is burnt by your allies as soon as you appear, so you're generally going to convert your gank into a kill rather than just burning a flash. In this clip, I just E into the bush and wait for either Jinx or Vel'Koz to trade, and then I strike. Notice how that since the Vel'Koz has immediately burnt flash as soon as I show myself, I can just immediately flash after him and kill him. And if you know that the enemy's burnt flash, don't be scared to just flash on top of them and tag them with red buff or something similar, because once you get the red buff on them, they're pretty much dead. The second big mistake that junglers make is they generally pick lanes that aren't trading damage. If you see lanes and they aren't taking any aggressive action, say they're full health versus full health, they're kind of standing near their turret, you're going to find it really, really difficult to kill them. So you don't want to try and prioritize those lanes. You want to prioritize the ones that are actively trading damage, and this makes your job way easier. The final big mistake that players make is they choose really suboptimal gank paths. So in this clip, I chose to power level to 6 before ganking bot. Now, while this passage of play seems really straightforward, the decision here to switch to mid instead of bot because he has no flash is a big one. It's quite likely that we're going to get a kill at bot, but there's a risk that we can get counter-ganked by Twisted Fate, which is one of the drivers to gank mid instead. And this clip also highlights 2 of my favorite gank paths. The first one, and the one that you should get used to when ganking mid, is to go over the ledge rather than come through the mid bush. This allows you to catch people even if they flash away, and in case they try to run away, you're already approaching them from behind so that you can sandwich them with your laner. The second gank path on purple side is to walk through their jungle to gank bot, and the same mirrored path on blue side to gank top. This allows you to get behind them, and most of the time they don't have their inner bush warded. So when you do this gank path, it's also imperative that you ward behind yourself so you don't get sandwiched and die. So the next technique that you have to master to be a good jungler is the Minion crash dive. This particular technique requires you to identify which lanes are pushing, and then you position yourself such that you get behind their turret and sandwich them before all of your minions die. As soon as your minions reach the turret, you and your laner combine and kill the enemy as soon as they go to last hit the minions and such. The enemy is kind of stuck in this narrow location between the turret, and if they flash out, you just flash follow them out of the turret and you can just chase them down and kill them. So an example of this is in this clip, while I'm clearing the Razorbeaks, a lot of junglers would often continue to take red buff and then proceed to clear their Krugs. But as we saw on the chart before, this is the lowest priority option you want to take. We notice that the mid lane's pushing and the Annie's low. So it's just a matter of communicating to my Yasuo what I'm doing and ward the enemy jungle so that when I go for the dive, I can see if someone's collapsing on me. And this minion crash dive is particularly devastating because you deny the enemy laner a massive amount of gold and experience by killing them when the creep wave is crashing into the turret. And this type of play is a massive win-win situation for you because if the enemy stays at the turret, they're going to die. If they leave the turret, they lose a massive minion wave. And minion crash dives are ones that you should very, very highly prioritize on your decision tree. In general, it's a really good habit to ward the bushes behind you when you're in enemy territory, so you can scout for enemy junglers trying to follow you that are counter-ganking. This is really, really important when diving turrets. So after checking the bottom lane here, I noticed that Xin Zhao's middle, so I can dive at the bottom lane. It's generally a poor idea to try and dive the turret here with an Alistar and no minions. And I also know that Xin Zhao's rotating down. So after killing Tristana, I need to leave straight away. Otherwise I'm going to get sandwiched and be forced to use ultimate to escape. So another thing to note here is that if Tristana was in higher health, I'd have to wait until the minion wave arrived at the turret to do a crash dive. Just straight up diving the turret, unless I can instantly kill them, is almost always a bad idea, especially when the Xin is rotating down to sandwich us. So one really important takeaway here is that you want to reduce the chance for the enemy to come back. The difference between being 3-0 and trading 1-for-1 and being 4-1 is huge and almost single-handedly negates your good play by giving away your bounty and solo experience. It's really possible that we could have picked up a kill here, 3v2, under the turret when the creep wave hits, but it's also extremely risky, and for sure I would have had to burn my flash and my ultimate. So just take the free kills, save your ultimate, and then exert your pressure somewhere else. Let's say, for example, with another dive at mid lane. So the next technique, which is extremely poorly executed, is to frequently shallow invade the enemy jungle. Now, shallow invade means to just walk a small distance in with the primary objective to get a ward down. And if you get lucky and the chickens are up, then you just steal chickens. So what you do is you just ward the bush on top of chickens, and then you take their chickens and run away. And one of the most important things about jungling is to try and figure out where the enemy jungler is. And these shallow invades where you pop the wards down let you know this information. So for this reason, every time you can get wards down in the enemy jungle, you should take that opportunity. So a classic example is if you've taken Scuttle Crab, you just simply walk in, drop the ward, and take the chickens. This gives you massive safety, and you can run away at any time if the mid lane is collapsing on you or the enemy jungler shows up. So the other time to invade the enemy jungle is when the enemy shows on the other side of the map. This is a great time to invade because firstly, you can get a much deeper invade down, and you can get sneaky deep vision down, such as the pink ward behind red bush, and you can also deny the enemy camps. But more importantly, you gain this guaranteed access to behind the back gank paths that are almost definitely not warded, and it results in free kills a lot of the time. So in this clip, I see Elise show up at bottom lane. And regardless of whether I saw her or not on the minimap, I would have just walked into her jungle and tried to steal her chickens anyway. Because at the very least, I get to put down a ward, and my team will know where Elise is if I get spotted. If she doesn't happen to be there, I can just take the chickens for free. But since I see her at bottom, I just continue to take her jungle, and I leave the little ones so that I can grow the XP and gold disparity. So at this point, since I'm standing behind Shen, it allows me to circumvent the common top river brush ward and get off a successful gank. So in this final clip is something that's not very commonly done by junglers, which is punishing an enemy mid laner for roaming. Now in this clip, I'm farming chickens, and I would most likely do red buff afterwards, but I spot Annie running up to gank my top laner. Now this is a clear indicator to look for either a fast turret mid lane or a turret crash dive bot lane because everyone's on the top side, so I want to go to the opposite side of the map. Since I have Rift Herald, I know that taking the turrets is most likely going to be a better option. So after taking the turrets, since we know that the majority of the people are on the top side of the map, it's essential that we look towards the bottom side to see if we can make something happen. Now looking towards the bottom side means to either ward, or we can invade all the camps in the bottom side of the jungle, or we can look for a turret crash dive 4v2 on bot lane. And you must make sure that you ward behind yourself, especially if you choose to go for the dive path, just so you can be aware if you're getting counter ganked. So while we didn't turret crash dive here, because Vayne was low enough to get one shot, you should try to estimate whether you have enough time to wait around for the minions to arrive before you get counter ganked. And also make sure you set out your escape path beforehand. There's nothing like trying to dive a turret, then realizing that you have no flash or panicking and having all that nonsense happen. So like I said before, it's not worth it to die and get a kill, but let your enemy back into the game by giving away your bounty. So there was a lot of information in this video, especially for newer junglers or ones below platinum. So watch it a few times to make sure you understand everything, because the next video will be talking about how to use these basic techniques to carry the game. So until next time, guys, peace out.